Hey, welcome back to the Too Fast channel. In today's tabletop review and installation, we're going to be modifying my Volkswagen EOS VR6. We are going to be replacing the lower dash piece on the driver's side. This is the piece that encompasses your headlight switch. The US specification EOSs do not have this little storage compartment right here. This piece is all solid. And doing some research, that is because the NHTSA, or the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration, has stricter safety rules than Canada and other countries. One of their rules, this is based on some research that I've come up with, is to prevent drivers from submarining, in other words, getting in an accident and sliding underneath the dash. That particular rule is assuming you're not wearing your seatbelt. Now, if you're wearing your seatbelt, it's kind of a non-issue. But for some reason in the US, we have to cater to people who don't wear their seatbelts. Canada doesn't have that same rule. Either does most of the European countries. It just seems to be the US. So why do I mention this? Well, the US ones, the US spec EOSs, as well as the Golfs and the Jettas and many of the other Volkswagens, this panel is solid because behind it is a couple of aluminum reinforcement bars. And that's something I'm going to have to remove. Based on what I've seen, those bars can be unbolted and this can be installed. But what I've watched video-wise is people doing this on a Golf. So nobody that I know of has done this on an EOS in the US, so at least that I can find. So I'm going to be the first one to document it. All right, so why am I doing it? Well, obviously this storage compartment. This piece right here, which is not actually clipped in, folds down. It's got a little handle on it like a glove box and folds down. And you've got some additional storage. I have this kind of taken apart here because we're going to talk about this a little bit more. So additional storage is always good. Now, this came off of a 2008 EOS, so the interior color is going to match my car perfectly. And I got this out of Canada. This came from Ontario. The company I got it from is Next Generation Volkswagen Dismantlers. They're in Ontario. I'll put their link to their Facebook page. That's where I found these guys. This was $100 Canadian shipped to me, which translates into about 74 US dollars shipped to me. So I got this entire piece along with this top trim piece, which I've already removed. Also, this trim piece, this is an option we didn't get in the US. I mean, it's not really carbon fiber. It's sort of like a dot matrix. Ours was either kind of a fake looking wood or a brushed aluminum. And if you recall from previous videos that I've done, I've wrapped all of my trim in 3M carbon fiber. So I'm not going to be using this, but this is actually pretty nice. I like this a lot better than the silver trim that comes in our cars. And, you know, just another variance for Canadian market cars versus US cars is this trim. They got this and we did not. Anyway, this piece right here pops off this way. So if you use a little pry tool and you pop it off this way, there's a hook right there. And you can see there's the little snap right there. So it comes off real easy. So I won't be using that. This little door actually snaps into the bottom there, and I have it snapped out so we can talk about it. You can see it's a little small storage compartment, good for storing miscellaneous items. And not much else to talk about that. So going into this now, the existing piece that's in the car I have not removed. So I don't know exactly what I'm in store for by removing it. I can tell you right now that the piece that's in the car, from what I can tell, has 3 screws down here that hold it in place. Now this piece does not have those screws on it. This piece has a screw here, a screw here, and a screw here. Obviously my piece does not have those. So if we look at the top, it's possible, I don't know if that's a screw hole. That's obviously a screw. I'm not sure how I'm going to get to that. This other, yeah, that's not a, this is not a screw hole. This is part of the trim that goes in there. So that's definitely not a screw hole. So I'm looking at this possibly. I'm assuming mine has this. I'm guessing mine has this and the 3 on the bottom. Whether or not these are actually inside of my car, I won't know until I get the panel removed. On the side, there are no screw holes on the side. There's a plastic cover that goes here and that covers your fuse box. So the cover clips in here. So that is that's where I'm at this point. So right now we're just taking a look at this piece. The headlight switch comes out real easy. You just kind of push in and turn and pull it out. Unplug the wiring harness. This switch, I believe I will have to remove this panel before I can remove this switch, because it looks like it clips in right here and right here. So I'll have to unbolt this panel piece and pull it out a little bit to unplug the dimmer switch. This actual piece right here is not really removable. As with a lot of Volkswagen parts, it has little pegs, and this piece is installed over the pegs, and then the pegs are melted down. So, I mean, you could remove this by using a rotary tool and cutting all those off, but then you'd have to figure out a way to reattach it. I went through that with the door panels when I removed the door panels to remove the silver brushed aluminum trim to wrap them in carbon fiber. Those pieces were held on like this. So different from the Golf. On the Golf, the door trim wasn't melted. These pegs weren't melted on the Golf, but they are on the EOS. That's in another video that I did. So I won't be removing that piece. This piece arrived in really good condition. Need a little bit of cleanup, but there's no scratches or gouges or broken pieces or anything like that. The door assembly itself snaps right on down here, and I have it removed basically for the video. So anyway, that's the first part of the video here. The next part is me getting into the car and removing the piece and removing the braces, because I believe there's 1 or 2 braces inside of here that need to be removed. Now, this process has been done on Golfs that I'm aware of. So I'm expecting somewhat of a similar experience on the EOS, but who knows. Anyway, let's move on to the next part of the video where I actually get into installing this, and we'll see what kind of rat's nest we get into. Okay, we're moving on to the installation of this Euro cubby storage unit in my Volkswagen EOS. In the previous section, I mentioned that underneath here there was 3 screws holding this in place. There actually is 3 screws, but only 2 of them actually hold on this piece. The other screw is for this bottom trim panel. I didn't actually get down and look when I was making the first section. I just put my fingers down there and felt 3 screws. So they are T20, so you're going to need a T20 Torx bit to remove these 2 screws. The next thing we need to do is remove this fuse panel cover, and it's best if you have some sort of a plastic pry tool, like this is a little plastic pry tool, and there's a little notch right down here, and you can get the tool in there, and the panel will just pop up, pop off, and comes out like so. Or you can use your fingernail. Let's get that out of the way. There are no screws over here, from my understanding, so we just have to remove that panel. So 2 screws down there. We have 1 screw right up here. I think I pointed that out in the first section of the video. So although you may not be able to see this too well, there is this little trim piece that goes over the steering column. And what you need to do is you need to be careful, obviously. You want to lift it up on both sides, and then you need to pull it straight out. There are some little spring clips, and you can probably see somewhat there, some little spring clips. And it's not going to completely come out because there's this vinyl piece that's connected underneath the steering column. So you just need to move it out of the way to get to the screw that's right there where my finger is, and that's another T20 Torx. So that's pretty simple. Just be careful removing it. Don't force it. Lift it up, pull it out. It should come out right away. I've never done it before, but it was pretty easy. The other thing we need to do is we need to remove our light switch. And in case you don't know how to do that, you can push in and turn and then pull, and it'll come right out. Real easy removing the switch. There's this little plastic tab right there. And you can use your fingernail and kind of push down on that. And that'll come out. So easy enough removing that. This dimmer will have to remove this panel and unplug that because it clips in from behind. So this panel actually has to come out somewhat, so we can unplug this and then we can unclip it and put it on our new piece. So as I mentioned in the first part of the video, there are no screws down here. I'm not sure if I'm going to have to tap screw holes into this, or if I will be able to bolt this into place, putting 2 screws here and 1 screw here, and then of course the screw right up there in the top. I don't know if these holes exist behind this panel. I don't know exactly what's behind the panel. I know there's some metal bracing we need to remove, which I believe is a 10 millimeter socket, which I have out already. So I'm hoping that I can bolt this in using these 3 spots. If not, I will have to secure this the way the original one is, with 1 screw here, and I'll have to tap a couple of holes in the bottom. So we're not to that point yet. We're getting there. So I apologize if I end up blocking the camera view. I'm trying to work with the camera in the only spot I can put it. So I'm going to get up here and get this other T20 out. All right, so there's our 3 T20 bolts, and we'll just have to see how this pops out. Let's take a look. And I believe I've checked here with this trim piece that goes over here. There's no screws right there. This trim piece, which goes right here, just snaps into these 3 holes. So there's no screws behind that. there's a little lip right here. So looks like well, I think I might want to remove this trim piece right here. I'm not sure if that's necessary or not. Let me, it's like there's some clips that are holding this in place still. But don't see any other clips that might be holding this in place. Oh, we got a garbage truck. I'm going to pause the video for a second. Okay, with the garbage truck gone, we can continue on. I took another look at this and discovered that there is another T20 screw right inside here behind the headlight switch. So I failed to notice this before, that there is another screw right there. That's why this wasn't easily coming off. So with that screw removed, this drops out nice and easy. All right, so now we need to unplug our dimmer. There's a little tab you need to push down to wiggle the plug out. So you can see this is the back of the original US spec lower bolster cover, light cover. We've got a big piece of foam right here, and we've got some metal in here that needs to be removed. And then, of course, we have our switch here, our dimmer switch, and there's two tabs right here. If we press in on those tabs, we can pop that out. And then all I need to do is remove my carbon fiber trim and install this on the new piece. And I don't believe we need anything else off of this. If the piece you're going to install doesn't have these little metal clips, you can take these metal clips off. Mine actually has the clips on it, so I don't need to do that. And I think that's about it. So, got to do the carbon fiber trim before I go to install it. And while we're at it, let's, you can see the shape here. You can see where the two holes are. On the bottom. All right, so my understanding is that this piece is going to need to be removed, and possibly this piece over here, based on what people with GTIs have done. Now, this is obviously not a GTI, but we'll have to see how it goes. It looks, yeah, that bar is probably going to need to be removed, and I'm seeing these screw holes right here with the little threaded metal clips. These are there, so I should be able to get these in place. So this one, this one, this one, and this one at a minimum. Don't know about that one yet. Yeah, and that one's there too. So this one, and this one are all present. So obviously this whole assembly was kind of generic, and for US spec cars, they added some different pieces here. So that's good. So it looks like I'll be able to bolt up everything. I will use the two screws that normally went on the bottom. I'll use those for here and here. I will need one more to go right there. Fortunately, I have some extras that have the same thread pattern, so I have one of those. So I will be good there. So we've got these bolts. It looks like they're Torx and possibly 10 millimeter. Let's see if they are 10 millimeter. Yeah, they are 10 millimeter. Remember that from watching a installation of one of these on a GTI. Now one there. This other cross piece right here is going to be a little bit more challenging to get to. I may have to remove this lower trim panel. Yeah, there's one more bolt way over there. Oh, we have 2 bolts here, and it looks like 2 bolts there. And just a reminder, this trim piece I'm installing, this cubby hole, came out of a Canadian spec car. So it's not like I'm really compromising the safety of this car, because the Canadian cars don't have this. In the US, we just have very strict safety regulations. And the purpose of this piece in here is to prevent anti-submarining in the event of an accident for people who don't wear their seatbelts. I could be wrong on that, but that is based on my research. That's what I came up with. If you've got any other more insightful information, you can definitely leave me a comment about it, because that may or may not be 100% accurate. Going off of third-party information on why this is present in U.S. spec cars. Okay. I think I've got all the pieces of this unbolted. Must be missing something, because it's not. Must be another bolt. I'm going to have to get underneath here and block the camera's view. So let me pause this while I figure it out. Okay, it would appear I got in there with a flashlight, and it would appear that it just has this little clip right here that I needed to pull straight out on it, and this whole piece pops out. So heavy piece of steel. So there we go. Let's see what we got back there. Bunch of relays. And yeah, boy, if you needed to replace a relay, it's quite a bit of work to get to some of those. All right, so this piece, which I do believe needs to come out, there's one bolt way over here that I'm going to have to drop this panel down to try and get in there. On the GTI, at least the videos I watch on the GTI, this panel piece will fit, but the little cubby will not with this here. So I expect it to be the same with the EOS. It's just kind of, yeah. You can see it's right there. It's definitely not going to work. All right. So this bottom piece, I don't think I need to take the whole thing off, but I'm going to need to drop it down so I can get a socket back there onto that. And again, another piece that I have not removed. That third screw that I initially was talking about, I believe holds this piece on. It's right here, and there's another screw here. And there's a screw right there. So screw here, and a screw here. I should be able to drop this down enough to get maybe a 10 millimeter wrench back there, maybe the socket, I don't know, without having actually removed this whole piece. So again, I'm going to pause the camera and do that, and we'll come back and we'll see what we actually need to do to get this piece unbolted. Okay, so this screw down here doesn't need to be removed to get this panel loose. You've got one screw here and one screw here. Looks like there should be a screw there, but there isn't. I've actually got something kind of stuck back here just to hold this panel out, and I've got a 10 millimeter. It's not a ratcheting wrench though. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get this bolt off without removing this lower panel. I'm not exactly sure how it may just be clipped on and I could pop it off, but if I can do this, I have to use both my hands to do this. Yeah, this is not going to work. I'm going to have to try and remove this lower panel. Okay, I didn't record this part because it was a lot of fiddling around trying to figure out how to either remove this panel or get it even looser. If you recall, I mentioned that there's a T20 Torx right here that holds this piece on. Well, directly on the other side, right over here, is another T20, and that actually also holds this on. There's obviously some more disassembly that needs to be done to completely remove this panel. But by removing that top T20 screw, I was able to pull this back further, which allowed me to get in with a small 10 millimeter open end wrench. Ideally, to do it this way, I need one of these that has a ratcheting end on it. That would have worked out so much better. So this took me about 10, 15 minutes with this wrench to get the bolt out. There was a single bolt that holds this piece on. It's the same as the other bolts, a 10 millimeter with Torx. So it is definitely doable. You can remove this. Since this is the first time I've done this, I didn't necessarily have all the proper tools needed to do this in an efficient manner. And I do not have a small ratcheting 10 millimeters. So that's something that's going on my list of things to buy for future. Okay, so with that done, I can put this all back together. Took the screw out there and kind of popped it down just a little bit. So I got to pop that back into place and put the screw back in, and then put the screws back into place here. Okay, I've got the T20 installed back up top on this trim panel, and the T20 down here is installed, and the T20 here. I thought this one was actually missing, but the cubby pocket, the Euro cubby pocket trim panel, it's gonna screw in here and here. So that's why there's no screw right there, just one right there. And there is an indent right here to clear this screw. So I think we're pretty much done. I've got my carbon fiber wrapped trim piece installed, and I've got the dimmer installed that snapped right in. So I think we're good to go. I just need to collect all the screws and we can get this fitted in and bolted up. And this is all put back together. We've got all of our screws. Pretty much all the screws are the same, so it's not like in some cars where you've got to create systematic piles of screws because these 4 screws go here, these 3 go here. Volkswagen's pretty consistent when it comes to screws. They pretty much try to use all the same types of clips or all the same type of screws. At least that's what I've seen so far with the disassembly that I've done. All right, so our first step is to plug in our dimmer. And we'll plug that in so that it snaps into place. And make sure we've got our headlight wire readily available. And okay, I see another problem already. I didn't notice before. Pop this back out and unplug this. You can see right here, this piece is definitely going to be in the way. So there's a bolt, excuse my big fat head as I stick my head back here. There's a bolt back here that is kind of behind this fuse box. So I'm going to have to loosen up the fuse box to move that out of the way. And there's a T20 down here. I don't know what else is involved with moving this fuse box around. Now, if you see this green wire over here, this is a wire that I added. That wouldn't be on your car, most likely. There's a T20 there and a T20 there. Speaking of the bolts, the bolts that hold on the fuse block have a different thread. They're more of a machine thread. They're still a T20, but they're longer and they have a different machining. So definitely want to keep those together. And let's see. And this plastic assembly. I don't know if I want to try to remove that. I need to just move this a bit. There we go. All right, so ignore my little green wires there. You wouldn't have that. I'm tapped in one of the fuses for some power. But there's a 10 millimeter right there, which is also a Torx. It's probably a T30. And this is the same 10 millimeter bolt, so I should be able to get this. Okay, so there's our last piece that needs to be removed. I don't think there'll be any more. Let me get my let's get this put back into place. Make sure my wiring is not all pitched up down here. I did originally have this all wire tied up. I'll have to do that again. And well, while I'm doing this, the purpose of this wire is I needed a constant 12 volt source. Most of the power in the Volkswagen shuts off after anywhere from a few minutes to 10 minutes. So I needed a constant power that stayed on all the time. And most of the circuits in the car do not have that. So I actually had to run a power wire over to one circuit in this fuse panel that stays on all the time. Well, normally I would tap into something inside of the vehicle, but that wasn't a viable option with this car. There we go. Okay, that should be the last item that we need to remove. All right, so let's go ahead and get our dimmer plugged in. Get our headlight cable out. Okay, so now you can see we've got plenty of clearance here. Put a bolt here, a bolt here, a bolt here. And I think we can get a bolt in right there. So that's where we're at so far. So let's get some of these bolts, screws, put back in. Excuse my head getting in the way. I think you know what we're doing here. Okay. And we are going to actually be short one screw. Once I put is when I got this Euro or Canadian panel here, it didn't come with any screws, so I'm just reusing the screws that I had available. And I guess I don't absolutely have to put a screw right there, but I am going to. I have one left that goes right up here, so I've got to get one more screw. We'll go ahead and do that, and maybe the landscape people will stop with their leaf blowers. Okay, I found a screw, which I believe was left over from some other project that I was working on, not from my car, but from another car. So I found an identical Volkswagen screw. I've got the screw put back in right up here, and I found a new screw that should be able to go right there. So excuse my fat head one more time as I double check that that will go in there. Okay, all of the screws are in place. Put the fuse panel cover back on and plug in our headlight. Okay. Okay. The last thing we need to do is put our little cubby in. So the obviously the fit and finish is perfect. The color match is perfect. I was fortunate that this actually came out of a 2008 and not a later model. Sometimes there are color variances in trim pieces. I can't speak specifically for Volkswagen, but I know on Mercedes, different generate or year after year, sometimes there's variations in color, and that can be a problem. But this is a perfect match. All of the screw mounts were there. I just needed to come up with an extra screw. So if you do purchase one of these from somebody, try to see if you can get a few extra screws from them. I'd hate to go to the dealer and buy one of these specific screws because I'm sure they're not cheap. Anyway, let's get our little cubby. And let's go ahead and get it installed. So it's got these little hooks on it that just kind of snap into place. So we just kind of snap it in, and then there's a little catch right there, a little tab, which you have to get a tab on both sides. So you want to push those in, and there we go. Now we have additional storage. All right, well, last thing to do, pardon me, is we need to put this trim piece back into place.
And these tabs, we're going to get those inserted. I got one of them in. Let's see if we can get this other one. Okay, got that one in. We push straight in, kind of push down. Oh, there's a little tab right up on top. I missed that, so I had to push down, get that tab into place. I've never removed this top trim piece before, so, and that's it. We're done. Incidentally, if you're wondering, this is a Euro headlight switch. This is not the original switch that comes in the US spec cars. Since this is a VR6, we have the auto headlight function, which is standard. What we don't have on our US spec cars is parking light option. So that's just parking lights, and then that's headlights and parking lights. We can also do parking lights and fog lights. So again, something else that the US cars didn't have for whatever reason. We can also double pull for a rear fog light. North American cars don't have a rear fog light. We have two backup lights. Anyway, that's the project. So we're pretty much done. You saw that for the most part it was pretty easy. Just accessing this metal cross piece over here was a little bit more complicated because I couldn't completely remove that panel. I had to remove a couple extra screws, kind of push it down out of the way, and get in there with an open end wrench and get that bolt off. Other than that, pretty simple. And that's going to wrap up this video. Hopefully, if you decide to go down this route and do this type of modification on your EOS, this information will make it a little bit easier for you. You can better prepare, get prepared for doing this type of installation, get the tools necessary, and complete it in a more timely fashion than what I did. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing to my channel, and I'll catch you in the next video.